Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is an X-Tech tips and tricks, and we're going to be showing you how to mount and set up the Dia Compe 990 U-brake on your 1987 to 1990 GT Pro Performer, the Pro Freestyle Tour, and of course the T model. This would also work on other 990 mount freestyle bikes. Just to be clear, this is my method and it's how I do it. If you have your own way, that's great, and you're more than welcome to share in the comment section below. So a little bit of background. The Dia Compe 990 came out in 1986 and was first used on the GT lineup in 1987. And the basic design has not changed since its inception. You could still buy the Dia Compe 990 today from places like Pork Chop BMX. So this video applies to all of those as well. The only major difference between the 1986 to 1987 versions was the cable strap hanger or the roller hanger. The earliest versions used a roller hanger to pull the cable, and this one was not as reliable as the aluminum hangers found on the later versions. First of all, the pulley is plastic and can break, leaving you without a functioning rear brake. Second, the pulley tends to wear out and have play or clearance between it and the pivot pin. So the more slack in the system that needs to be taken up, the less force per pull that is applied to those pads and ultimately to your wheels. So rule of thumb, if you're building a rider, use the aluminum cable hanger. If you are building a Carpet Queen, use the roller hanger. And you can still get them from Dia Compe, Grand Comp, Chang Star, etc., etc. Just look on eBay. So to start, you're going to need some small hand tools. An 8mm combo wrench, a 10mm combo wrench, 13mm combo wrench, some cable cutters. I like Knipex, but you can use a Park tool or whatever you like. A 5mm Allen key, some grease, and maybe some sandpaper. I prefer Phil wood grease, but you can use whatever you want. The next important thing is the bike has to be assembled to set up this 990 and dial it in. Everything needs to be tight and ready to go. The rear wheel must also be in place and set up so when the brake arms move, the pads make contact with the sidewall of the hoop or the mag. If it's touching the tire or not the sidewall of the hoop, then you must already adjust that position so that the rear wheel is in perfect contact. I recommend that the chain is on and tensioned, but it's not really needed. It's just a better way of doing it. This way you know where exactly that rear wheel has to be, either move it forward or backwards so that the brake pads make contact. Step 1 is going to be to clean the 990 mounts and wipe them down. I've seen people sand them, and I don't really recommend it unless they're rusted or full of dried cake on grease. You don't want to remove a lot of material, so if you're sanding, try using some 400 grit paper or some emery cloth. Then clean up and apply the grease to the posts. Now, just coat the surface of the post. You're not packing bearings. If your frame was powder coated by a professional, then the 990 mounts will be clean and ready to use. If somebody unfamiliar with powder coating the BMX frames did your bike, then it's possible that they coated and painted the entire mount and the post. You'll need to remove the powder only from the pivot post. So you also might want to get a M6 tap, it's M6 by 1.0, to chase the threads inside the 990 post before installing the Allen cap screws. You can use some compressed air to blow out the debris, but some shops use media blast or prep the frame, and it's possible that they used shot or sandblast and they got it inside the threads. Again, professional shops take precautions when they process your BMX frames. Another thing I'd like to add is this would also work for other types of U-brakes like the Axiom 767 that came on some of the 1988 GTs. The parts are a little different, but you'll work your way through it. So step 2. There are 2 different arms and 2 different springs for the purchase. Looking down on the brakes from above, the left arm or the drive side arm has an AD 990 decal and is the upper arm when it gets mounted. This arm gets a gold color spring. The opposite side arm, or the right side, gets a silver colored spring. If you do not put the correct springs in the correct arm, your brakes will not work. Install the ball pull cable into the left arm and pinch bolt and tighten it. You'll need about 6 inches of cable. So you can use an older brake cable if you have one laying around, or you can just buy a replacement cable from Pork Chop BMX. He offers them on his website. Install the right arm with the silver spring first. Then install the left arm with the gold spring. Be sure to engage the spring end into the hole in the spring perch. You'll notice that there's a small hole down in there. The end of the spring has to go in there. Step 3. Install the dust covers, making sure the spring end protrudes through the dust cover hole. Again, has to come through that hole. If you don't see it, things aren't right. Now, Just a quick note, if your spring is broken, and it's possible that that could happen, or somebody modified it and cut something off, you're going to need to replace those springs. So just make sure that they have a tip on each side facing opposite away from each other, and that there's no cracks in the spring. You can easily replace them. Pork Chop sells all of those parts to rebuild the entire 990, so you can get new springs if you need them, but you can reuse the old ones. It's no problem. So step 4, install the adjustment caps. Now there's no right or left here, so don't worry if you mix them up. The adjustment caps just go right on the top. Just make sure the spring end engages in the hole that's in the bottom of the adjustment cap. Step 5, install the metric Allen cap screws. If you wish to upgrade to stainless steel versions, you can do that now. Thread them down snug, but do not tighten them. So bring them down and then loosen it up, because we're going to be making adjustments and you don't want that super tight. Step 6, bring the cable strap through the roller pulley or into the aluminum cable hanger. Step 7, mount your brake pads. You can use some 40 or 80 grit sandpaper to rub them, or you can use a sidewalk. If you're building a rider, you kind of want to do this. It makes the brake pads grab better. For a Carpet Queen, none of this is necessary. Make sure your brake pads are going in the correct direction. Look for arrows on them. They're on the side of the pad sometimes. If you have some newer pads, they might not have the arrows, but they might have 2 dots or raised areas on one end of the pad. This indicates away or up. So if you're looking down on those brakes, those tips should be down. Now this is to toe in the brake pads, but on a 990, we don't need to do that. So you can grind those tips away if you prefer. And lastly, make sure your roller pulley is about 2 inches from the end of the barrel adjuster. It doesn't have to be exact, but that's pretty much where you want to be with a nice loop. Step 8. After you get the cable hanger set up so the end of the hanger is approximately 2 inches from the barrel adjuster, just snug up the pinch bolt to keep the cable from slipping. Do not over tighten it just yet. Next, rotate the adjustment cap nuts towards the front of the bike. So right side or drive side, you want to rotate clockwise. And the left side or the non-drive side, you want to rotate counterclockwise. No more than a quarter to a half turn. If you go more than a half turn, you could tweak the springs and damage them. So just hold the position with your 13mm wrench. Tighten the Allen cap screw to secure the position. Check the reflex of the brake arms. There should be spring force wanting to push the arm away from the rim or the mag. Make sure you check all of the cable ends and adjusters to make sure they have not slipped out of their place, especially at the splitters. Another thing worth mentioning is you want to have most of the barrel adjusters at the minimum adjustment, like at the brake lever or the splitters. So screw them all the way in and wait, because we're going to be adjusting those later. So at the gyro plates, though, I like to have them at the maximum adjustment, meaning almost all the way out. Then you want to mount the cable end in the brake arm and adjust the hanger puller. Then tighten the pinch bolt down nice and tight, and check the brake operation by pulling the brake lever. It should be nice and smooth. Adjust any slack out of the cables by using the barrel adjusters. Now, if the brake pads are rubbing against the rim or the mag, just loosen the adjusters a little bit, backing them off, and it will allow the brake pad to kind of expand. If you run out of room, remember, you can always loosen the nut on the bottom of the retaining pad and then move the brake pad on the post outward or inward, depending on which way you want to go. The final step is to dial in the adjustment. As you see here, I'm loosening the adjustment cap nut and slightly twisting the spring tension to move the arms in the direction as shown. This helps move the pad away from the rim and grants equal lateral pull from the cable hanger. Make sure the gyro detangler is parallel and not angled upward or downward, which indicates the cables are not being pulled linear. The detangler should be in the center of the stroke, so it's not resting on the lower cup or the upper plate. That means you'll have travel in both directions when you pull the brake lever. If it is off tilted, there's possibly a problem with one of the barrel adjusters. Maybe the cable has come out. Just take a look at your system and make sure everything is okay. And there you have it. The Dia Compe 990 dialed in on your Pro Performer or Pro Freestyle Tour. The only thing I didn't show you was how to install the cable ends and crimp them off to prevent fraying, but I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. The system should operate as you see it here. Obviously, it takes some practice to get to this point, so if you get frustrated easily, stop and come back later with a fresh mindset. So I hope this helped you dial in your brakes, and if you liked the video, hit that like button. Remember, take a moment and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming content. We're fast approaching 1,000 subscribers, so I want to thank you all for your support. Now, get back to your builds, and remember, tomorrow's not guaranteed.